This is Witch Nikki, and we're going to get right started into the Gruesome Green Witch. I'd like to say hello to my friends Aiden, Kaylee, Kennedy, Ginger, River, Jordan, Rihanna, Kaylin, and Julia. If you're out there, everybody, I love you. And whenever you do see, I know Ginger's not out there right this minute, but she's at school, and I don't know what River's doing. What are you doing today, River? And Rihanna, and all of you guys will be watching this at different times. It would be nice if we were sitting here and we could have cookies or milk or apples, cut apples, and some kind of dip to dip it in. That would be nice, or some hot chocolate or something. But we can't. But that's what you can do when you're watching me. So, here we go. The Gruesome Green Witch, as we've stated before, by Patricia Coffin and illustrated by Peter Parnell. Do you remember what was happening the other day? That Puffin's brother, Matt, went into the magic forest, and then he saw the witch. And she was kind of inviting him for tea, I suppose, but I think she was like trying to get him like a magical spell or something. So, remember that? Now, if you've been paying attention, on each of these videos, I had them listed, and by part 1, part 2, and all of that. But I noticed that part 1 needed a section or a and B, like the other part that we did yesterday. So there's a part 1, A and B, part 2, just 1, part 3 is just 1, and part 4 now is A and B. So today, you'll be looking up there, I'll say part 5. That's what we're on now, part 5. And I think we're just going to do one part of part 5. And I'm sorry that they get split up like that, but sometimes I run out of time. So I'm just going to there's only about 3 more chapters, so I'm just going to try to do one today. That might do it for us, maybe. How to make magic decalcifying potion. And not any kind of... hold on. Sorry for that mini interruption. So... yes, how to make a magic decalcifying potion. That's what I was doing, just showing you. We hadn't even gotten started. Phone. I have to have it turned on for personal reasons. Puffin and Mo collapsed in front of the witch's hollow tree. The mirror door had been slammed in their faces. Puffin felt her heart grow cold and heavy as stone. She felt as though she shouldn't breathe. For the first time in her life, she felt real fear, as you do in the middle of an accident. You can't believe it is happening. You wish it were an hour ago, before it happened. Tea came scrambling through the grass. "What do we do?" sobbed Puffin. "I was only trying to help him, and now I've killed him." "He isn't dead," said T. "He's been turned to stone for sure, but there is one way to get him back." Puffin waited, her heart in her eyes. Puffin waited, her heart in her eyes. I guess that just means that it was like, felt like it was pulsing in the back of her eyes. Anyways. There is a potion that will take all the calcium out of the Gruesome Green Witch. If you can get her to drink it, once she has decalcified, she is completely pliable and will do anything you tell her to, including turning her statues back into live men. What is calcium? Said Puffin. Do you know what calcium is? Calcium is what makes bones hard. A witch without bones folds up like a wet dish rag and loses all her power. We all would fold up if we didn't have our bones in us, not just witches. Fun book. Fortunately is made out of everyday things, whereas the antidote, the brew that would revive her, is made from newt's eye boiled in the blood of an Englishman. But we need not bother with that. What we need is a mixture of peanut butter softened with root beer, sprinkled in some shavings from a pencil sharpener, the shredded tongue of a sneaker, add some fizz from a mother's sweater, and 11 strands of blonde hair. The tongue of a sneaker is the part of the shoe that's inside on a lot of the tennis shoes or sneakers that the tying part goes over. And that little tongue, that's the tongue, because it looks like... Just a minute, said Puffin. Let me write that recipe down, and then what do I do? It is going to be up to you, Puffin, said T. You've got to go home and make the brew and get back into the magic forest, which stays open until 5:30 human time. But most important, you've got to get yourself invited to tea by the Gruesome Green Witch, and then slip some of the concoction into her cup. I've got to try, said Puffin grimly. I'll go back home and pretend I'm making a sandwich for Matt. I'll say he's studying so hard he got hungry. What'll we do? Asked Mole. If your father burst into the green room to check on Matt, where will we say he is? Puffin rolled her eyes. She and Mole knew she couldn't lie worth a darn. T, I just can't tell fibs, you know, so people believe me. Well then, said T, tell them the truth. It may not matter anyway, kid. By the time you get Matt out of the magic forest, if you get him out, it may be way beyond closing time. By that I mean he may be 18 and the magic forest will not be yours to come to anymore. You will have broken the rule. If you leave him now, turned to stone forever, you won't risk being banished. Oh no, cried Puffin. I could never do that. We've got to rescue Matt. I don't know what that little critter is. Trying to show it to you in the light a little bit. How about if I put it like that? A little bit closer. It appears to be some little person running with a pocket on the front. I don't know. It's a magic forest. There could be all kinds of critters in there. Well, that was the end of that one. That was pretty quick. We only have 9 minutes. But this next one is going page after page. The next chapter is called Tea with the Gruesome Green Witch. I'll try it. Just mushrooms at the top. See? That's it. Puffin and Mo tiptoed down the back stairs from the green room into the kitchen. Puffin was frowning tensely. This was no game they were playing. It was a matter of life and near death. Mole knew that if she stepped on a squeaky board or giggled nervously, she would lose a friend. Puffin crept into the pantry and lifted an empty mayonnaise jar with a screw top from the shelf, where her mother kept dozens of such jars, plus empty plastic ice cream containers, and in tin dishes frozen souffles come in. I do that too. I save containers. Okay. Mrs. Slater meant to freeze and preserve the produce from their little garden someday. While Mo slunk upstairs to Puffin's bedroom to empty the pencil sharpener into her hand, Puffin mixed peanut butter with root beer. In removing the root beer bottle from the icebox, she made an audible clunk. I could swear I heard the icebox door shut, said Mr. Slater's voice from the downstairs bedroom, where he and Mrs. Slater were taking a midday nap. Puffin stopped breathing. Then she quickly went into the pantry, grabbed some garden shears, ripped the tongue of her sneaker, cut it up, and added it to the concoction in the mayonnaise jar. She was pulling out 11 strands of hair, her face all screwed up, when Mole returned with the pencil shavings. There was one ingredient to go, fuzz from Mother's sweater. Mr. Slater yawned loudly and muttered something about getting some wood in the fireplace. Mrs. Slater went, like someone who doesn't want to be waked up. Puffin darted into the living room and returned immediately and disappeared into the pantry with the garden shears and the big, bulky, very fuzzy lavender cardigan. Mole knew it was mohair and very expensive because she had heard Mrs. Slater say so. Snap, snap went the garden shears. Just then Mr. Slater appeared in the kitchen door in his stocking feet. "What's up?" he said, friendly enough. We were just going to make Matt a sandwich. He's working so hard he's gotten hungry," improvised Mole, being a better liar than Puffin. "Nonsense," snorted Mr. Slater. "If it wasn't rock music, then it is peanut butter. Anything to stall, anything to avoid concentrating. Matt can wait until dinner time like the rest of us if he wants a cold drink. Okay, Matt?" He went to the foot of the stairs and called up. Puffin came out of the pantry. All three were standing there listening to the silence from above when Mrs. Slater said, "Where's my lavender sweater? The one I got in Italy?" Mr. Slater's face darkened. Mrs. Slater's brow furrowed. "Where is Matt?" thundered Mr. Slater, bounding up the stairs and into the green room. "He's working," ordered Mole lamely. "Where is he?" thundered Mr. Slater again. Puffin stood very straight against the kitchen closet door and told the truth. Her story seemed to make the parents mad. They didn't believe it, and they thought Puffin was trying to be funny and protect Matt in one more dodge to avoid his books. When she insisted that the magic forest did exist, her father gave her a hard slap. This absolutely shocked her. It shocks me. And I've lived through that time, so I know. Whew. She had been punished for telling the truth. Luckily, she was a wise little girl, wise enough to realize that there are times when it is better not to say anything, even the truth. And this was such a time. That's what I was talking about in the very beginning. Go and get Matt right this minute, he ordered her father. Puffin ran, clutching the mayonnaise jar and her mother's Italian sweater. She streaked up to the green room and whipped into the closet. Mole was left behind with Sydney as a hostage. She didn't envy Mole the next few hours with her parents. How would Mole explain her absence as well as Matt's? On the other hand, Puffin was going to have to rescue Matt all by herself. Tip-top, said T, sniffing the potion. Just right. Good luck. And he shoved Puffin down the path toward the Gruesome Green Witch's house. Hollow tree. Blah. Puffin walked along humming, America the Beautiful, and I am the walrus, pretending her heart was not beating extra loud and that her legs did not feel like silly putty. Presently she heard the sound that she had been waiting for, the high screech of a whistling tea kettle. It made her jump. Nervous today, little girl? Asked a whiny voice. What you need is a nice cup of tea. Oh, hello, said Puffin. The Gruesome Green Witch leaned from her hollow tree, waving a large silver teapot in one hand and a glass mug in the other. The mirror door was half open. Come in, she smiled, a moonbeam smile. We'll have green tea in crystal mugs and walk around my art gallery and admire the statuary. Okay, said Puffin, too frightened to be polite. She had put on her mother's cardigan, which had two big pockets, one of which sagged with the weight of the mayonnaise jar. They went down a winding staircase, down. Puffin held on to the iron railing. The witch was behind her. It got darker and darker. Then it started to grow lighter and greenish-bluish glow over everything. At the bottom of the spiral staircase was an archway, and beyond this was a huge room as big as the entrance to the Metropolitan Museum in New York, or the hall in the Paris Louvre, where they keep the Venus de Milo. The floor was polished black marble in which were reflected hundreds of stone statues. They lined the walls, stood about the floor, were placed in inches, and some even lay in corners like logs in a wood pile. In the middle of the room there was an elegant mahogany pie crust tea table. On it stood a silver cream pitcher with a bowl of sugar, several crystal mugs, silver spoons, and a pile of dainty green lace tea napkins. The Gruesome Green Witch sat down, facing Puffin, and started pouring. She was really beautiful with her pale lime green skin and big grape green eyes and that clinging green jersey dress of hers. Puffin accepted a mug, but shook her head when the Gruesome Green Witch offered her sugar. I'm sorry, she said. I'm allergic to sugar. I have some saccharin. This was Puffin's first successful lie. But it was told for a purpose. Puffin was far from allergic to sugar. Of course. I'll go see, said her hostess, and she rose like a green wave of undulated backward and undulated backward out of the room. Puffin whipped out the jar, unscrewed the top in a jiffy, and poured a slug of the potion into the Gruesome Green Witch's tea. It was done. But she didn't have time to screw the jar top on again, and had to sit there holding it upright inside her pocket with her left hand. "There you are, my dear," smiled the witch, holding out a little dish of saccharin pills. Saccharin pills are like little sugar tablets. Yeah, they're little pills that are like, saccharin is a different kind of sweetener, and it's, I don't know, I don't like it. But they used to have them. I don't know if they have them anymore. Puffin took one. "Now, let's look around," said the witch, and taking her crystal mug, she rose and beckoned Puffin to do the same, holding her tea in one hand and her jar inside her pocket with another. Puffin got up gingerly and followed. "There's your brother," said the witch, as though she were showing someone a portrait of a loved one. Indeed, the statue of Matt looked exactly like him, for it was Matt. There he stood, smiling adoringly at the witch, his shirt open at the neck, his hair tousled, a band-aid on his right thumb. Puffin's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, Matt." The witch laughed like a hyena. "Don't cry, little girl. I abhor human tears. They're too salty. Have some tea." Puffin raised her mug to her lips. The tea smelled like old flower water, but you know what that's like rotten vegetation, which is even worse than rotten eggs, which is supposed to be the most awful smell of all. The witch laughed. It was a horrible sound that echoed and echoed all through the big room, and the heads of all the handsome, ugly, tall, short, bald, hairy, young, old, serious, laughing, fat, thin statues of men that silently inhabited the place. Whew. "Drink," she urged. "It is delicious tea." And she lifted her mug to her lips and took a deep swallow. "Drink!" she screamed. Puffin took the teeniest sip. Immediately she felt a burning sensation like a pinprick at the end of her nose. The fatal freckle. Puffin couldn't have cared less. She stared at the witch. The witch stared back. Then the witch gave a horrible shriek, threw her mug on the floor, where it shattered into 1,000 glinting pieces. "I've been betrayed!" And she started to wilt before Puffin's very eyes. Presently she was whimpering, green heap on the floor, a pile of slimy old rags. Puffin did not know what to do next, and tea was not there to advise her. She was on her own. "Witch," she said, "I want you to do something for me." "How can I?" moaned the voice from the heap of dirty green rags on the floor. "Can't you see that I'm powerless? Get me a newt's eye at once." With her thumb and forefinger, Puffin picked up a corner of the gruesome heap and dragged the whole mess in front of the statue of Matt. "Turn him back into a boy," she commanded. The heap of rags trembled and shuddered and sighed and moaned. But presently these words were heard, sounding like a singing tea kettle. Now, these words are tricky, let me tell you. "Oh, Patucci! Papatucci! Ich stick Ben! John, Matt, come back!" The statue stirred. Matt shook his head as though he had been asleep. He stretched his arm. "Wow," said Matt. "What happened?" "Never mind right now," said Puffin. "Oh, Matt, you are alive again. I am so glad. Oh, Matt, it was awful." "What happened?" repeated Matt stupidly. He looked around. "Good grief, look at all these statues. They look like real people." "They are," said Puffin. "These are all men that Gruesome Green Witch has turned into stone. Remember her back?" "Ugh," said Matt, remembering. "Oh, double ugh." Puffin told him about the potion and explained that heaving, slimy heap of rags on the floor was the decalcified Gruesome Green Witch. Matt poked her with his toe. The heap moaned. "Turn all these statues back into men," he commanded. The heap whined and cried, palpitated like a jellyfish, and at last wailed. "Eedy beedy bitey bo, crack a ferny fearny foe, Apatucci Papatucci." "Ick, stick, banjo!" And every man in the room returned to life. No matter what lifetime you were turned into stone. There was a tremendous roar as everyone started talking at once. The men jumped out of niches and up from the floor and shook hands with each other and asked endless questions. Some were dressed as Puritans. Others were in uniforms of Revolutionary and Civil War soldiers. Many were plain Dutch farmers, and lots were modern businessmen wearing shaggy tweed sport jackets and gray flannel trousers. They were even a couple of long-haired hippies. "Let's get out of here," said Puffin. She felt this mob was more than she could cope for. She and Matt wormed their way into a spiral staircase and climbed up out of the tumult in the great hall. Then they started running home through the magic forest. Well, my goodness. Well, I'm going to leave you one more chapter. Let me take a look here. It's almost time for me to finish. Yep. Puffin is decorated. That will be our last chapter when we come back to read The Gruesome Green Witch. Thank you very much for being with me today. And I'll see you next time.